G'day everyone and welcome to our Brownlow edition of the Weekend Wrap. We've had a few weeks off, but we're here to listen in while they count out those votes, talk a little bit about the Grand Final coming up this week, and also just talk about the trade news going on. So without further ado, let's smash straight into it. G'day Macca, how you going, mate?
Very, very good to be back on Procast, mate.
It certainly is, eh? A few weeks off.
Yeah.
I think I've managed to get everything sorted. I don't think there's any glitches. I'm sure people will tell us if there are glitches. What happens.
It's an unusual thing. We don't normally start like this.
I know.
We normally start with a problem.
It's a well-oiled machine, mate. Well-oiled machine. Oh, look, it's good to hear your voice, mate, after all this time. And thanks to the few that have joined us. I know that the Brownlow's on and people are probably watching that. But I just felt like, the Brownlow can be a bit of a bore fest, a bit of a snooze fest. So why don't we just have a bit of a chat while the Brownlow's going on. And there's plenty to talk about, isn't there, mate? So, and we'll keep an eye on the Brownlow in the background.
Yeah, well, just, talking about the Brownlow, Cripps, Neil and Oliver are all tied on 16 at this stage, at virtually not quite the halfway mark, round 11. They would be, I think it's only 5 chances, Frank. I think
so, yeah.
Lockie, Neil, Oliver, Cripps, Brayshaw and Miller. Who I don't think ever gets the full value votes that he really should, but... yeah, they'd be the 5.
A better team, he might.
That's what I'm getting at. And, I think, to me, I'm narrowing it down to 2, and that's Neil and Oliver. They were my 2 before we started, and that's what I'll stick with and see whether I get it right.
Yeah, look, that sounds reasonable. I'm a bit of a go for Paddy Cripps. As you know, he's a bit of a favourite of mine. They do drop away a little bit, Carlton, towards the back end, so... it'll be interesting to see how that pans out at the business end, but certainly he's going all right at the moment when the Blues were firing. Look, I just need to say g'day to everyone who's joined us on YouTube and also on Discord. Feel free to have a chat. I will be updating the live tracker as we go along. As you can see there, it's right up on the screen. As you mentioned, Paddy Cripps now in the lead with 17, Neil and Oliver on 16, Petrarca on 15. Unfortunately, Benny Keys dropped away, Mac, pretty quick after a fast start.
Yeah, but interesting enough, he was moved out of the midfield, and once he was moved out of the midfield, he was never going to attract any votes. Prior to that, not that all of his possessions were great possessions, but the umpires don't seem to worry about that. They just see a body getting a lot of the ball. And
yeah, that's right.
That's why Keezy would have got a lot of votes early.
Yeah, very true, mate. Very true. Look, I was going to say, aside from the Brownlow, hasn't it been a cracking final series, mate?
It's probably been the best one on record with one match, just the one match when Melbourne faded away in the second half. But every other game has been an absolute belter, where you can't really decide who's going to be the winner until the very, very last seconds of the game.
Yeah,
I mean, Collingwood could have even snuck that game. That's how, the ball was, that close to their goals, and in the end, they got rushed through for a point, which saved their bacon. But every game has been an absolute ripper.
Look, and, many are saying that Collingwood were a little bit unfortunate with the decision towards the end, but, I think...
it was a rotten decision. There's no doubt about that. I mean, first of all, he pushes him in the back, and then he's paid a mark that he's actually dropped. But you know, he was. I heard him being interviewed, and they discussed that particular point. His reply to that was, "Well, yeah, maybe that wasn't 100% right, but then again, if you go to look through the match, you'll find there were a lot of incidents that weren't 100% right."
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's it. Look, I thought it was 6-1, half a dozen the other, to be honest with you.
No, I think it was the wrong decision. But then again, there were other wrong decisions during the game. There are probably plenty of them.
Yeah, well, that's true enough. That's true enough. Look, but I'm actually glad that Sydney got in, because I think they're a much better show of actually doing a number on Geelong. I don't think Collingwood's forward line would have held up against Geelong.
Well, I think they got within 6 points of them last time. So
yeah, they did.
So I think they would have made a game of it, and they would have had about probably 60-70% of the crowd barracking for them. So Sydney, on the other hand, won't have that sort of backing at the MCG. I don't know what, and I really don't understand the politics of footy in Melbourne, whether the City team barrack for Geelong in a final, if they're the only Melbourne team there. Do you know?
I'm sorry, what did you say then?
The point was, I don't. If there was a Collingwood or an Essendon or one of those, like a city-based Melbourne team, you'd have the crowd barracking for them quite vigorously. But Geelong's almost like a country town and outside the metropolitan area. Do they have that same state loyalty to Geelong?
Oh, I think so. I mean, there'll be a bit of support for the Swans, obviously, with their heritage being South Melbourne and the Bloods culture, and every time the Swans have made a grand final, they've been very well supported. So I don't think there'll be any problems there. And the Cats had a pretty big season, so I reckon it'll be well supported on both counts, Mac, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I changed my mind during the year. I remember saying for about half the year I didn't think that Geelong could win the flag, and about 2/3 of the year I realised they'd changed their game plan and the way they moved the ball. And instead of that kick mark, and then doing it at a quite sedentary pace, they sort of sped it up quite a bit, and that's made them very, very dangerous because of the forwards that they've got to kick to. So if you get a ball in there pretty quickly, there's a very good chance they'll get a goal. So on paper, you'd think Geelong would win it, but I'll be barracking for Sydney.
Yeah, same here. Look, Geelong are just making use of their strengths. They've got a dynamic midfield that, I mean, they're not contested ball beasts, but they do get good numbers, and they do stand up when it counts. But they've got Stewart down back playing that mop up, and it'll be very interesting to see how Sydney handle him. And then they just want to get it down into their forward line, because they've got so many targets down there. They've got the two tools with Cameron and Hawkins, and then they've got Gary Rowan slotting in, and then a couple of smalls along there with it, and they can also chuck Dangerfield down forward. So, they've got plenty of scoring power. Blitz arse in the ruck is dynamic. As I said, Stewart down back, and they just put ball carriers around them, and away they go. So I wonder whether Sydney will make it a bit of a scrap, or whether they'll try to have a shootout with them. I think if they have a shootout, they might come undone.
Well, I think you're quite right about that. If they allow it to be very, very open football, they'll get done. There's no doubt about that. That's not just my opinion. I think the strength of Sydney is to scrap hard. And although when they played Collingwood, they played a team whose only strength is to scrap hard, which is one of the reasons why they got beaten. But nearly got beaten. But you're right. The forward line, I think there's two parts to Geelong. There's their forward line and the way they structure their defence. And I thought that Collingwood for half a game were absolutely stupid. They allowed Geelong to man up their defence as they like to do, with one defender behind everybody else.
Yep.
And the number of times that they kicked the ball down there and it came out so easily because of that spare defender. And, when Fagan came out and said it, going back to that particular game, that when he said at half time that we're going to man that player up, I thought, why did you allow it for half a game?
Why did you leave it so long? Exactly
I
right.
just didn't get that. Didn't get that at all. I thought that was quite stupid. But I'm sure that Sydney, look, I think Longmire's a very good coach, and I'm sure that he will account for that. So and Sydney have got a pretty good forward line, so that if they do the right thing and if they do man up like that, I think that in the midfield, Sydney got a pretty good midfield. The danger to Sydney is that forward line where you've got so many players, 3 in particular, that can actually tear you apart.
Yeah, so, the interesting one for Sydney, Mac, is Reid, because he's really come on as a foil for Buddy, and in many cases is probably their most prominent forward. And with a bit of an injury cloud on him, I don't know whether Buddy and Logan McDonald present enough of a threat to Geelong, so they'd be really hoping that Reid comes up.
Yeah, I think the forwards that are the danger to Geelong are not the tools. You're quite right. It's the smalls. They've got very good smalls. And what Reid did, he contested marks, and if he didn't get the mark, he'd at least get the ball to ground. And that's where Papley and Heaney and others had the opportunity to get the ball. So
Correct.
I would love to see Sydney win the game. And I'm not saying they can't win the game, but I think they've got to make sure that Geelong don't have their own way in the back lines and have that set up where they've got the player behind the player and allow you one more player up the field, which is the way it's what they do. They just back themselves, and it does work for them. And it does work.
You're exactly right, Macca. They've got to bring the ball to ground in the forward lines. If they let Stewart just get uncontested ball the whole time, they won't be able to get blokes like Heaney and Papley into the game. So they really need to be making strong contests at centre half forward. I think that's almost the key to the game. I think the midfield's fairly even. I think Sydney's defence is underrated, but at the end of the day, I think it will. Sydney's defensive efforts will largely depend on how much ball Geelong get in forward 50. If Geelong get a lot of forward 50 entries, then Sydney is sunk, I think. But if they can limit the forward 50 entries and make enough of their own without allowing the ball to bounce out, then it'll be a contest, I think.
I read a funny little point, which I thought was quite quaint, actually, that Sydney, it's been 26 years since Sydney have won a preliminary final in Sydney to go through to the grand final, and in each case they've won by 1 point.
There you go. Another little interesting stat, the team that's had the close preliminary final has won more often than not versus the team that's had the easy preliminary final.
Strangely enough, that's true too. So,
and look, you do wonder about Geelong's conditioning. It'll be their second game in however many days. They had the week off. An easy game against Brisbane. Brisbane were terribly disappointing, in my opinion, and didn't really offer much resistance to Geelong, and Geelong would have hardly got a bruise out of that game. They haven't had a hard, tough game of football for a little while.
I thought they were shocking, actually, Brisbane. They really were, in the sense that there were so many players that just didn't perform on the big stage, and as I said, I also blame the coach as well for allowing that structure to continue as it was.
Yeah, now look, Inquisitor on the chat, and g'day Inquisitor, and others who've joined us on the chat, says that fatigue is their biggest foe. I don't know whether it is. I reckon that when the whips are cracking, you want to. It's harder to step up a gear when you haven't had to step up a gear for a while, and I just think that Geelong would want to be out to a fairly good lead at three-quarter time to be comfortable, I think, because Sydney will keep coming. And I don't think it'll be fatigue that'll worry Geelong. It'll be their ability to step up a gear when Sydney start cracking in.
The interesting thing, though, is that it did work for them, what they've been doing. They've been resting Selwood and Dangerfield alternatively in games. And they brought both those players back fresh as daisies, and they both had very, very good games, mate. And
it is good management. They've managed those players well, mate.
Yeah, and they've only played that one game. They probably played both games, but it was 26 or 27 days in between games.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to be that battered and that bruised, and so I don't think that fatigue is the problem. It'll just be sheer ability, I think, in the sense that the one thing I will say about Sydney, I've never seen or rarely seen a Sydney side that's not desperate to get the ball, and I'm sure they will apply the appropriate pressure that's necessary to win a flag, and for Geelong to win, they're going to have to match that.
Yeah, and I think for Sydney to win, they're going to have to withstand momentum shifts, because Geelong will get a run at some stage, and they will kick a couple of goals. Hawkins and Cameron and Stengel and Mine Griers and a few others down there, they'll get on a roll at one point, you would think. And Sydney have to be tough enough to withstand that and keep coming. I think if Sydney keep coming, that's their best chance of winning. Just an update on the scores. Neil on 19, Cripps 17, Oliver 16, Petrarca 15, Brayshaw 14. So look,
sorry, was that the end of round 12? Was it, Fiend?
Round 12, yes, that's right.
Yep.
So look, I've thoroughly enjoyed the final season and series, and I also have enjoyed the SANFL final series, Macca, and we don't talk about the SANFL that much, but what a cracking grand final it was today.
It was a beauty, and a bit of a slight upset, you'd say, slightly, because North Adelaide have been the best side all year. Norwood, they were Adelaide put them to the sword firstly, but then they played their next game and qualified back to bounce back again against Adelaide again, and were much too strong for Adelaide in the end. Ran away from them towards the end, and today North Adelaide got the early lead, and I thought they would hold it. And then, to their credit, the D's came back, and they sort of always felt that North were always just going to get that extra goal and win the game, but it didn't work out that way.
Well, when they got those two goals at the end of the third quarter, I thought, oh, there goes the momentum break. And I must admit I was barracking for... I must admit I was barracking for Norwood because it's my grandfather's team and the first team that I barracked for before, much to his heartbreak, I switched over to Sturt when I was about 6. Those two goals at the end of the third quarter, I thought, oh, that's the breaker. And then it was just a slog at the end, and Panos kicking the winning goal. It was probably fitting because he's an absolute powerhouse for them, and he's had such a good career with Norwood, and a fitting way to finish grand final, I would have thought.
Yeah, they got that at the 28-minute and 10-second mark, and I thought to myself, they could only be at a minute or so to go in the game. Yep. That's what it proved to be, about one more minute. So, well done by Norwood. I mean, as I said, they had their battles. They lost to us, then they won their way back in again, and then they beat us, and now they've knocked off North Adelaide, who probably looked like they were going to win all day. And it just goes to show with perseverance, and if you never give up, what you can actually do. And I think you were quite right when you talk about Panos. He's been good all the way through. So, no, congratulations to Norwood. They deserved it just through sheer effort and sheer determination.
Now, the leaderboard after round 13, Lachie Neale got 2 votes, Brayshaw got 3, Cripps got 1, Oliver got 2 out of the lads in the top half a dozen or so. So that leaves Neale on 21 with Brayshaw on 20, 18 to Cripps and Oliver, Petrarca 15, Miller 14 and Mills 13 sneaking up there. So pretty tight count.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Tones in the chat makes a comment, which I 100% support. She says, hope Neale wins because Cripps is the umps golden boy. And I reckon he gets a lot of votes from the umpires. And I don't think he's best on ground because he's got a big body and he has big impact, etc. But you watch where the ball goes when he kicks it most of the time. His impact on the game is big in the sense of when he actually gets a ball, but not necessarily big impact on winning the game.
Mate, you've been shitting on Patrick Cripps for 3 years.
I have.
And even when I've been supporting the lad, not forgetting that Patrick Cripps should have been wearing a Crows jersey if we'd actually drafted appropriately.
Then I would have thought differently about him.
Yeah. I really like the kid. Yes, he gets a little bit from the umpires, and yes, he's a bit scrappy with ball in hand, but Oliver's a bit scrappy with ball in hand too, mate, and I'd have either of those players in my team first picked, I reckon.
No, only one, Oliver. I just love Oliver. He gets the ungettable ball.
Well, he didn't get the ungettable ball against Brisbane. That was shocking. That performance that Melbourne put up was shocking.
Oh, their second half, but that was the whole team. It was terrible.
Yep. I reckon, just digressing a little bit, I reckon, Nikki Hassel in the chat, sees girl, Oliver is shit. That's just a ridiculous comment. He's not shit by any stretch, but anyway. I reckon Melbourne got ahead of themselves, Mac. I reckon they played arrogant football. Keziah Pickett, in particular in that game, got far too far ahead of himself. He was in people's faces. He was having shots for goal when he should have passed off. I don't know whether we'll see Melbourne regroup. I think there might be a few little factions in that team, Mac, and I reckon they believe their own hype, and they got found out.
Prior to the finals, I've got a feeling that their form was pretty ordinary, actually.
Yeah.
Didn't they only win something like 6 out of their last 13 games or something like that?
Yeah, they weren't great. Didn't they go 10-0 or something, and then they fell right away? I think they thought they were unbeatable. Thought they were unbeatable. They dropped off, and then they had a nice win just leading into the finals. And I thought they probably thought to themselves, "Here we are. This is how we play." But they got found out. They played arrogant football, Mac, and it'll be very interesting to see whether Goodwin can keep that group ticking over as a team, because they just started to play like individuals halfway through the season.
Well, one thing Goodwin did, which I think cost him plenty, Max Gawn is the best ruckman in the league by 1,000 miles, and his impact on a game can be massive if you use him correctly. But for some strange reason, he was using, what's the young lad's name? Jackson. He was using Jackson as his first ruck, with Gawn spending most of the time in the forward pocket or even off the ground. And I think that it was a massive mistake. And I couldn't understand it because Gawn is by far the most influential ruckman in the competition.
Well, I'll put it to you, Macca, that Gawn was carrying a groin for the last month of the season. And I reckon that had a bit. I reckon that had a bit to do with it. He was struggling with that groin, and it got worse and worse. And look, it always strikes. Groins are nasty, and to me, you just don't play a bloke that's carrying that sort of an injury. and they should have just, like, what's the old saying about playing injured players? You see it so many times where teams go in playing injured players, and it never, ever, ever works.
No, never does. It always lets you down.
Yep. Never mind. All right. So we're just we're still at 13 there. So around 13. So we'll tick along. Now there's been a little bit of trading news, Macca. Obviously the big one is Isaac Rankin and the debate, I guess, about how much we should be giving up for Isaac. My feel is a late first rounder, probably 12 to 15 would be appropriate. What do you think?
Well, you're in the same ballpark as me. This Mr. said he's worth pick 5. He's not worth pick 5. I mean, Charlie Cameron was worth pick 12, and he was playing much better football consistently for longer than Rankin is. And so, to me, I've always, and I've been pretty consistent with this by saying that I believe that Rankin's about a pick 15, genuinely. He's worth pick 15. So, how do we manage that? I suppose I suppose one way of doing it is, and it all depends what you think of the chances of getting Francis Horn next year, and he still hasn't committed. I wish he would do one of two things: say I'm not going to commit, or whatever. But if you think that he's out of the running, let's just say you think that you won't get him next year, that because with the Clarkson factor that. Because he's already made comments. He's quite much happier now that the Clarkson's there. So, and they haven't even played a game yet. So, if you were to assume that he is not going to be available, then I'd be giving away our first rounder for next year, but I'd be wanting some change back for it. I'd be wanting.
I don't agree with that, mate.
Well, I wanted to keep the first. I wanted to keep the first round so that we can get a top midfielder this year. Well, that's my thinking.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways of looking at it. We either, if we think we can get Matthias Philippou with a late single figure, like an 8 or 9 or something like that, then we go ahead and try and split the pick, I think. There's a couple of clubs that would be in the market for pick 5 for a couple of later picks in the first round, and that would be my first go. Try and get to, say, pick 7 and 12 or 7 or 8 and 14, something like that, and then use the second one on Rankin and use the first one to try and pick up Matthias or someone similar. There's a couple of good mids in the draft at the top end this year. The second option, of course, is to try and fiddle around with next year's first. But that's a bit fraught with danger, in my opinion. So I'd be trying to split our first this year if I could, mate.
Well, when you look at what Gold Coast have actually got, they've got pick 7. In the second round, they've got pick 25, 31 and 34. And in the third round, they've got pick 43, 52, and then they've got other picks after that. They are loaded with absolute picks this year. They don't need picks this year, but they do need picks next year for a father-son situation. So, who's going to be very high up. So, they will need...
They don't need a first rounder for that. They just need points.
Well, what I'm saying is they'll be looking more for draft picks for next year rather than this year, because they've got an absolute swagger draft picks, and they can't. Apparently their salary cap is tight again, and they can't afford to take in too many players. So, as I said, my thoughts were that I would be saying, well, here's if we go down this path, you've got our future first, and I want Rankin, and you'll pick 25. And I think they would do it if you just kept on that particular path. Now, going down the path that you were suggesting, and I've been examining that, and the problem I can see is this, that to split the pick, Sydney have got picks 14 and 17. they're the only ones that have got 2 first rounders. So if we split the pick with them, even if we was, say, offered pick 17, pick 14 is not going to get us Philippou, if that's our target. He's going to be.
But
he's
you're
going to probably
forgetting
go.
you're forgetting a few things. GWS are going to have 936 picks after they get rid of Hopper and Taranto and the other bloke, Tanner Bruin.
Yeah.
So GWS are the ones that we'd be trading with, in my opinion.
Oh, well, yes. Well, at this stage, they've only got pretty well standardly pick 3, pick 21, pick 39, then 57, 59. So, but they could have another 2 to 3 first rounders.
That's right.
So
they're the ones that I'd be.
Well, you're probably right. That's probably a fair target. Gold Coast has still got pick 7 of their own in the first round. So
yeah, you could do a 3-way. You could get 7 from Gold Coast for 5 and Rankin with something from I don't know how that works, but like you could get the 3 clubs involved, in my opinion, or you could have a chat with GWS afterwards. There are ways of splitting the pick that probably aren't evident just yet, depending on how the trades fall in week 1. You'd expect the GWS stuff to get done reasonably early, Macca, because they're salary dumping, so they're not going to mess around too much. They want to get those things done, I believe. And they'll be hungry for picks because they need to bring in some young talent. So I reckon GWS are the one.
Well, it depends how creative we are. If you remember right back to the year that Rankin and Lukosius were drafted, Port Adelaide were in a worse position than we were to get those players. But they managed to trade from a much more unfavourable position than we were by several moves. They got traded with somebody to get a pick such and such, and they'd split that pick and they'd trade another one to get such and such. And I thought they were so innovative that year, and that's the type of thing that we've got, because all we've got really from a starting point is we've got pick 5, we've got pick 23, we've given away our 3rd, we've given away our 4th, and then we go to pick 77. So
I don't think Port were that innovative. All they did was dump a couple of players to get up to pick 6 to get ahead of us for Rosie. That's all. And then they picked better with the remaining picks that they had.
I also traded very well with Freo, though, as well. Not
no, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
And then they just did the same with Brisbane as well. So I thought they were very, very clever the way they did it.
Yeah. Yeah, they got rid of talent, though. We see the difference is, Mac, that we didn't have a wing guard to get rid of. We don't have that player.
That year it was Burton.
When Wingard went to Hawthorn.
But I think it wasn't Burton in the year of the.
No,
I'm talking about the.
I'm sure it was Wingard. I'm sure it was Wingard that got them Rosie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I get your point. But what I'm saying, I guess, is that we don't have the playing stocks to be able to trade players, in my opinion. The players that we'd be interested in trading out aren't going to get us the picks that we need. And I think what we need to be doing is getting creative. And look, whether we can do something with this year's pick 5, whether we need to do something with next year's pick instead. To be honest with you, I'm of the mind, Macca, that whatever Jason Horne-Francis does is next year's problem, and we need to deal with what we've got in front of us. And what we've got in front of us is a very strong, tall midfielder that's a South Australian lad in the first round. I don't think he'll go above pick 8, Philippou, but he'll certainly go in the top 10. So we need to have a pick. We need to have a pick ahead of Port Adelaide to be able to nab him, because I think Port would be quite happy to get him with Gray and Boak and those blokes coming towards the end of their careers. So I'd be happy with if we ended up with Philippou and Rankin, and whatever else happens after that. with maybe Michael Lanning coming in as a father-son, or maybe someone else. There's some good tall SANFL talent around at the moment, Mac. That centre half forward for Norwood impresses me a lot, and I reckon he'd be on a couple of teams' radars, if not for the rookie draft, then certainly for the mid-season draft next year.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the money. There are a lot of good SA lads at the moment, but I think that given our situation, that not having a lot of draft picks, and I think if we ended up with Rankin and Philippou and Michelini, because Nix has said he's very happy with the crew that he's got, and the way that we've been recontracting players leaves us with very few opportunities to delist players. So we're obviously not going to go in for a big haul of players unless we can actually trade some out, and there will be possibly some traded out. You've got Frampton possibly to Collingwood, and you've got Scholl and Fisher who may be, and Crouch who may be, and I think that probably they all will be in the end. And that will probably then opens up the whole situation. And there's also extra draft picks for Michelini at the other end as well. So,
well, it gives us a few picks. It gives us also a few list spots, Mac. And of course, we have to make mention of the fact that Luke Brown has retired after 189 games and a fantastic career. Unfortunately, cut a little bit short by an Achilles that he just couldn't seem to overcome at the end. I made mention during the week that out of the little mini draft situation that got us Brad Crouch and Luke Brown. Luke Brown was always seen as the second stringer in that deal, but he turned out to be the main event, didn't he?
Yeah, he was really regarded as steak knives in that particular event, and as you say, he's been, except for the last bit of his career where he was suffering. Was it groin that he was suffering?
No, Achilles.
Achilles. He slowed down so massively, and but prior to that, he'd been an absolute rock, rarely ever beaten, and you could just count on him every week that he would do his job. And he had an outstanding career, and it's a pity that it's ended with injury the way that it has. But no, I salute him. He was a great player for the club, and he's done the right thing by retiring, because he can only come back as probably nowhere near the player he was, and nobody wants to do that.
That's right. Had a year to go on his contract, so could have just seen it out, but bailed early, and respect to him. So that frees up a spot. We have to elevate our Category A rookies this year, I think. Butts and is it Keys?
Butts and Keys. No, they can have an extra year this year.
Oh,
no,
do we?
they're allowed they were because of COVID, etc. They were allowed an extra year.
Yeah, okay. I thought that was last year. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We may want to upgrade them anyway, depending on how we go for spots to make way for a couple of other rookies. But as I said, given our situation down back, where we're fairly light on for key position players, and given that we don't really have another, we've recontracted Elliot Himmelberg. We'll probably lose Billy. You would think that would be on the prowl for some sort of key position defender, with only Murray and Butts there, with Worrell and Duday, etc., being sort of third tallish types. So you never know, we might go to the rookie draft on that one.
Yeah, we probably will. But as it currently stands, we had the maximum amount of number of players you could have on your list. We had 38 on the main list. We had 4 rookies and 2 Category Bs, but we actually had 5 rookies because we took what was his name? The Glenelg player.
Turner.
Turner. We took Turner, and because that's only in a short-term situation because of a player out with injury for the year. So we were one over. So now that Brown's retired, we're actually back on the number. So we're back on with the 44 players. So we have to, whatever number of players we've got to pick, we actually have to make those sort of vacancies. And I think that I think they're
Well,
pretty
you've
well
got
counted.
Mackesy, Shoal, Frampton, and Crouch are the possibles at this
Yes,
stage.
and I
I'm
think
still
they're.
not convinced that McAdam won't go back to WA. I think there'll be a strong push from both those Western Australian teams to get Shane back to WA because both of them need dynamic forwards.
Yeah, he's contracted, and I think the club would just say no, quite frankly.
I don't know about that.
Um,
For the right price. He's not
yeah,
untouchable, Macca. Shane McAdam's not untouchable. Come on.
well, what would you take for him then, Pete?
Oh, I'd probably take a late second.
Yeah, I agree he's not untouchable, and we've got another forward coming in. So, yeah, you might be right. But I don't think that's probably in their plans, but who knows? They've kept their cards very close to their chest, and they put out this published information that you'll hear lots of names, you'll hear lots of rumours, and pay no attention to any of them. We will always announce if something is actually going to happen. But what they're really saying is that you can speculate your head off, even if it's true. We're not going to say nothing until it happens.
That's right. So, there's a fair bit going on. The Billy deal seems to be done from all reports to Collingwood. He's requested a trade. So that seems to be a done deal. Just got to get that done. And I reckon if we get any sort of meaningful pick for Billy, it'll be a win. I'm not expecting much more than probably a late third or early fourth or something.
Well, it's what Collingwood have currently got at the moment is that they've got a first, no second, and then they've got 3 thirds, 42, 47 and 48. And I think that we might be able to win, pick 48 out of them.
We might get 48 out of them, which will help us with Michael Annie, if that's what we want to do.
Well, I think the club is committing to him.
Yeah. Matty in the chat mentions Poulter. There has been a few little tiny whispers about Caleb Poulter wanting to come back to South Australia. Nothing in the mainstream press as yet. What do you think? Couldn't get in the Collingwood team. Second year on an AFL list.
He's an interesting player because he gets a lot of the ball, and most of his ball he gets is by running and making space, and not so much by contested ball. And Collingwood were all about contested ball this year, and that's probably one of the reasons why he didn't get in the side, because I thought he played quite well last year for a first-year player, but as I said, he played basically as a running player who'd make space to get the ball.
Played him off half-back, didn't they, Collingwood, for most of it?
Well, I like the lad, but to me, he's just another Lockie Shoal, really.
No, he's a little bit stronger than Lockie. A little bit
overhead,
stronger.
Definitely stronger overhead.
I think he's more versatile than Lockie Shoal. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be spending much on Caleb Poulter, to be honest with you.
No, I wouldn't either. I think I'd rather have the draft pick.
I think so, yeah. Even if they want to do a swap with Billy and a few picks chucked around, I think I'd probably say, nah, look, if you want to, I don't know whether he's contracted or not, Poulter, but...
no, he's out of contract.
They might delist him. Who knows? I don't think so, though. He's not a terrible player, but what did he go, Caleb Poulter? Did he go second round?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, he's not going to get that now. Anyway, look, aside from that, I think that's all that I've heard. We had a lot of scuttlebutt during the course of the year that we're looking at Hopper, but that seems to have settled down, and it looks to be a Geelong or Richmond move for Hopper now.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hopper won't be coming here. He's going home to Victoria. There was a little bit of talk about a couple of the Fremantle defenders, Logue, but Logue's going to Melbourne. I think he's going to North Melbourne.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
And but the one they would have really liked to get, but he has since taken out another 3-year contract with Freo, and that was Cox. They were definitely heavily in him trying to get him, but they couldn't get him.
That was last year, and we might get him under free agency. That's about it. It would have been a good pickup because he's a damn fine player, but he's not coming home. But Logue, no, you forget it. He can go to North Melbourne and play with all the other spuds. He was terrible in their final, I thought.
Yeah, and he was actually. I think the two main areas we get, and I know we're getting Rankin as a forward line, but I'm sure they're going to use him on ball somewhat as well, surely, because the two main areas, I think our forward line, which is unusual for any club really, is our strongest area, of the three areas. The midfield is reasonable, but could be better. And if we're vulnerable, it's down back, as you say, for tools. So
we're only vulnerable down back in the case of injury, Macca, in my opinion. I think our starting lineup is pretty solid, particularly with Worrell coming on in the back end of the season, which is really pleasing. Having Worrell and Dede available as your mid-sized tools, Butts and Murray as your two key positions, and then we've got a cast of thousands to fill flanks and pockets. Even with Lukey Brown finishing up. Up forward, we seem to have enough cattle. This is why I am strong in us not giving away too much to get Rankin in order to miss out on Mateus Philippou. Because from what I've seen of Philippou, he's strong, gets his ball, he's got good delivery on the left, can hit the scoreboard. I really like the look of him, and I just like he looks to be to me the size of Jackson Haitley, but all the things we wanted Haitley to be that Haitley isn't.
I think you summed him up perfectly there, Fiend.
I reckon he'd just top off our midfield nicely,
Oh, would he ever? No, he's the right size, and his mobility, and he's got all the factors that we would like in a not an undersized midfielder, but a nice oversized midfielder.
Yep, not slow, but the most important thing is he can deliver the ball, Mac. His disposal is pretty decent, so it'll be very interesting to see. And of course, as we draw closer to the draft, we'll hear more, obviously. But the negotiations with Rankin are going to be quite interesting. Just getting us up to date with the Brownlow, and we're at round. What are we at? Round 16.
17.
Yeah, they're counting 17 now. So we've got Neil on 24, Brayshaw on 20, Cripps on 20, and Oliver on 20. Miller and Petrarca slipping back on 18. Jeez, I'll tell you what, with the finish of the season that Lachie Neale had, he could be a dual Brownlow medalist in about 40 minutes.
He's in there. He's in there. Miller's just moved up to 19 now too.
Yeah, but Lachie Neale had a good back end of the season. I'm actually surprised he polled so well in the first half of the season because he was getting tagged a little bit from memory, but it's his to lose, I reckon, right now.
Yeah. Oh, look, he'd probably still be the favourite, but the others are close enough to get him if they're...
Well, I reckon Cripps drops away. I reckon
Brayshaw had 2 or 3 poor ones.
Yeah.
Oliver,
he also
had Oliver strong finish.
Yeah, Oliver strong finish. Miller, they got a couple of wins too, Gold Coast, but I think he's just too far behind. Really, when you think about it, Neil probably polls in at least another 3 matches. So that's maybe 33 votes. Brayshaw snuck up to 1 behind him. So really, I reckon you could almost draw a line under Oliver, and it's just those four now: Neil, Brayshaw, Cripps, and Oliver.
Yep.
Very
No, it's an interesting one. The one thing about it, it's going to be a good footballer.
Yeah. Well, unless it's Patrick Cripps, according to you, he's an absolute spud.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's not going to win it. No, I don't think he's a spud. I just think he's overrated, that's all.
Yeah, okay. Whatever, mate. So I guess, while we're waiting for the for the draw to continue,
see, Vardy Magic agrees with me.
Yeah, well,
and he's a wise man.
What did you think about the? Well, that's debatable. What did you think about the Crows' performance in the SANFL finals, Mac? In particular, a couple of the lads, the young lads that are looking to push into the ones over the next 12 months.
Of the ones that played, well, obviously the one that really stood out was Pedler when he was really that first game when he was 100% fit or seemingly fit. I thought he was absolutely outstanding, and if you could get him going, if he could play at that, and we know he's got that in him, and if you can get him so his body could just hang together, and he could play like that, that would be absolutely beautiful for us.
Well, we've got the best in the business to do that, mate. So if anyone's going to get him right, Burgess is, and I agree with you. We need to get Pedler, and he needs to get himself AFL ready. We knew that he was nowhere near AFL standard fitness when we got him, but we loved his talent, and I think that's been borne out by the glimpses that we've seen. But if he doesn't start getting on the park, Mac, then at what point do you throw up your hands?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Well, you give him a couple of years, but it's got to be next year is very important for him and for us because he could be so good for us.
Yeah.
The other player that really stood out, and he'll definitely play AFL next year, is Zach Taylor.
Yeah.
Now he's pretty light at the moment. He'll build his body up a bit. He's got good pace. He's very elusive. He's got good disposal. No, I think we've got good material for the midfield. Taylor just needs a little bit more body, and Pedler
Is Zach Taylor going to be big enough to hold down a regular AFL midfield position?
I think he will be. Yes, I do think he will be. You don't have to be that tall. You just have to be good.
No. I'm not saying tall. And I think, what is Zach? I think he's 180 centimetres.
He'd be about 180.
Someone will tell me in the chat if I don't find it first.
181. Somebody Vardy Magic thinks.
Well, let's see if Vardy Magic, the all-seeing, the all-knowing Vardy Magic is right. Because no, he's wrong.
Impossible.
182.
He's grown. That's what he's doing.
Well, and that's not unheard of for a young lad. Look, I really like Zach Taylor. His agility and his use of the ball, first rate. His ability to get the ball, first rate. So I'm hopeful that he can build up an AFL ready body over the off season, because if he does, he could be a linchpin in our midfield.
Yep, I agree with you. So those two stood out for me, Pedler and Taylor. Another one that stood out for me is already played a couple of games. Worrell looked like an A-grade player playing down in the Bs. He was a cut above
100%.
He's playing in the A's and doing very well. Has raised his self-belief massively, and he just looked like I know I'm better than these players. And I thought he played excellently right through the final series.
Very well summed up, Macca. I couldn't agree with you more on that one. He looked like an old head on young shoulders. He looked very assured. Looked a lot more confident in the air, Mac.
Didn't he?
Was making good position, was strong in the contest. Loved it. Almost a walk-up start next year as long as he has a good pre-season. Curvis showed some signs too, I thought, on a wing. Still pretty raw, hasn't played a huge amount of footy, Curvis, but I reckon another 12 months into him and we might actually see him. And I reckon Luke Nankervis could be a smoky for that X factor forward.
Well, I like him as a wingman actually, Thane, because he's got very good pace and he's got very good running capacity as well. So and his disposal is pretty good. He had a pretty good series overall as well. Every game I thought he did pretty well. So
yeah. I could see him being a dynamic forward, Mac. He's good overhead. We haven't seen a lot of it on the wing, but he is good overhead and can take a hang too.
He can.
He's got some X factor about him. So whether he ends up on a wing or whether they push him forward and see what he can do there, I'm not quite sure. Lockie Gallant seemed to tail off this year, which I was very disappointed about. Seems to need to put on some muscle and seems to have fallen into the Darcy Fogarty trap of wrestling instead of just jumping. And whenever he did jump, he seemed to be jumping under the ball a bit.
It was totally unexciting. I thought he was very poor in the whole series. Along with him, I'd throw in Newchurch. I mean, Newchurch, I do not understand how people week after week give raps on Newchurch, because Newchurch is good when the ball's given to him out in the open, but that's not how football's played. Somebody has to get the ball, and often it's in his area to get, and he doesn't. He doesn't go in hard enough. He doesn't work hard enough. He doesn't chase. There's not much I like about him at all, other than the fact that once he's got the ball in his hands, then I like him. But, that's not enough. If you can't have a side that allows that. It's just too much. So
yeah, I'm with you on that one. I've not been heavily enamoured with Tariq the whole time. I don't think he works hard enough. I don't actually think he gets to the right positions often enough, Macca.
He doesn't.
No, it doesn't work. If he stays on the list, I could probably see them give. He's a Cat B, so I could see them giving him another year. But he's got a lot of work to do. The lad that could replace him. Oh, we don't get NGOs anymore, do we? I was going to say Keeler might be.
No, unfortunately, no. No, we don't.
Yeah.
No. So the other one who had a very good series was Himmelberg, I thought. I thought Himmelberg did pretty well.
Look, I don't disagree with you, Mac. As we just focus on the count, I think we've had round 18 now, and only Petrarca got a vote out of all those. Do you know what, Mac? I think we've seen what we're going to get from Elliott. I don't think there's a lot more left.
No.
And, at times I wonder whether it's enough. Like I've used the old Matty Robran analogy with him before. And I think maybe it depends on how we decide we want to structure up. We've obviously got Tex and Fogarty next year, with Riley Thilthorpe probably sharing the ruck duties with O'Brien or Strawn. I don't know. I'm glad that they re-signed him, because I think it was worth a re-sign. I don't think we get much. I don't think there's much more improvement from Elliott, to be honest.
No, the other thing, he is depth, and also, if anybody does want to take Himmelberg, at least he's contracted, so you can actually probably squeeze.
That's right.
Something slightly better out of him. But no, I think for me, what I took out of the whole series was, as I said, that I was really wanting Pedler to get himself 100% right, because he can be anything if he does. And Taylor, really happy with him. Nankervis, really happy with him. And Worrell, very happy with him. So there's some very good things about the series. And and I can understand why the coach, Nix, is feeling pretty happy, because he's saying, well, we weren't a hopeless side this year, and we've got some nice youngsters coming on.
So round 19, and there we have Brayshaw alongside Lockie Neal on 24 points. Cripps also got 2 votes to get to 23, and took Miller making a little bit of a charge there on 22.
Well, he had a very good finish of the year, Miller. I reckon Miller will get votes in nearly every game.
Well, and they won games, Gold Coast, towards the end, didn't they? So he might get another 6 votes.
It's an interesting one.
6 votes. Very interesting. Very interesting. What do you think about Turner? I like an extremely good SANFL player. Does he get a run in the ones?
Yeah. Now, I was very annoyed that they took him, but I have to say this: watching him right through that final series, he's at SANFL level. He certainly has got class. There's no doubt about it, because he can. He can get a hard ball. He can get an easy ball. He uses it either by foot. He uses it very well. So there's not a lot. There's not a lot to dislike about his game. If he can translate that to AFL level, he'd be very, very handy to have a player to have in the side. So I think he probably will get another year.
I think he'll get another year. No doubt about that. I think he'll get another year. I'm wondering whether he gets a look in at AFL level.
Well, that would be determined by how they train, and they have their match sims, etc.
Well, put it this way, Macca. If he's not in calculations for an A-grade spot, then we should not give him another year.
Well, that's exactly right. That's 100% right. He's either going to play A-grade or not at all.
Yeah.
Somebody put the question mark, Borlay's done now. The interesting thing about Borlay's is that I'd written him off after the first 2 games, and he is slowish. That's one thing I don't like about him. He's a little bit slow. But he had a very good, the last game we played, I thought he had a very good game. And but still, that's at SANFL level, not AFL level. And I think he would get found out for pace at AFL level.
I'd love him to be about 5 centimetres taller, Mac.
Yeah, well, exactly.
He's a big lad, but he's just a tweener size, isn't he?
Yeah, if another 3 or 4 inches taller would be beautiful, and then you can forgive that slight lack of pace. But at the size he's at, he's got to be much quicker. So yeah, he sort of twits in between, and yeah. He's probably not.
Yeah, he's got to offer something. At that size, he's got to offer something else. And I just, I don't think he has got anything else. Unfortunately, I really like him. He was good for Sturt when he used to play for Sturt before he got picked up. I like him, but I just feel like he's a tweener, and it's a shame because he's a solid lad. And if he was key defender size, then he'd be really good, but not right now, I don't think. Mr. Brayshaw takes the lead on 25 votes.
One interesting, why did Davis only play one of the SANFL games?
I don't know.
Marty Magic says injury. Okay. Explain that.
Yeah, we got Miller on 25 as well. Took Miller on 25 now, above Lockie Neal on 24 and Cripps on 23.
Well, Miller was my bolter if there's going to be one to win. But tell you what, have a look at it. Have a look at it. And those first 4, any of those can win that. And Oliver comes over very solidly too, I know.
Yeah, Oliver might get a couple towards the end.
It's a good
And
camp.
now Paddy Cripps on 26, Mac. That'll warm the cockles of your heart.
Oh, yeah.
Cripps 26, Brayshaw 25, Miller 25, Neil 24.
All right, look, Page in motion. You are right. Seriously good. How Cripps can get 3 again when we won? Bloody good point.
Cripps
Seriously
wasn't best on
rigged.
ground in that game. He wasn't best on ground in that game. He got 40 plus, but he wasn't best on ground.
Every time he gets, I'm sick of him.
I'd still have him in my team every day of the week.
I didn't say that, but in terms of when it comes to every Brownlow, this guy gets so much more than he deserves every time.
Disagree. Anyway, so yeah, no, look, I think I'd like to see Turner in the ones. I'd like to see what he could do. And I'll tell you where I'll tell you where I'd be interested to see what he could do, and that'd be up forward, you know.
Well, to me, he looks like he's like the type of player you could play virtually anywhere, actually, in terms of either on the ball, which is where they did play him. I think you could play him on a half-forward flank or even in a pocket. But I also think you could also possibly play him on a half-back flank as well. I think he's a pretty versatile type player.
Pretty versatile.
I think he's pretty senior and he's got a lot of faith in his own ability. What would happen, though, if he goes up to AFL level, it will be that little level faster, and will he have that same ability to do the same thing? But I think you won't know unless you try. And, well, look, I don't see Siege Girl, he probably could prove to be a waste of a pick, but look, Davis has sat there for 6 years and done nothing. So he's got to go. Look, if it works out, we've got a spare spot, I'd give it to him.
I'd like to understand why Seasgill is so adamant. Because Turner was probably our best player through the final series in the SANFL.
Well, he was.
I don't know how he was a waste of a pick. Anyway, yeah. So look, there's a bit coming through, but I guess for us to say that the last couple of years drafting has been successful, they all have to come on. And there's question marks at the moment. Question marks at the moment around whether Taylor can come up to fitness, up to size. Pedler, whether he can see out a season.
The body.
Nankervis, whether he can come on a little bit more.
I think he will.
So there's a few players there that if they come good, if they continue their trajectory, and if they turn into AFL fit players, then all of a sudden we don't have a bad stock of midfielders with Berry, Schoenberg, Saligo already in the mix. And if you chuck a Mateus Philippou in there, for example, see a bit more Josh Rochelle through there, maybe a bit of Isaac Rankin through there, all of a sudden, Macca, it's not looking too bad, right?
I agree. I think that you got to rotate Rochelle and Rankin both through that midfield at times. You just have to. And that's, both of them have played the position when they were in their youth. So it's not like it's something that they've never played before. So to get the maximum out of their and both of them have got an uncanny ability. So you want to get the most out of it.
Yeah. Now, a question I have is around the ruck. And to me, it's not the most important part of the ground, but it's certainly one where if you can get a lot out of your ruckman, like we've seen with Melbourne with Max Gawn, it's certainly a bonus. Now, Riley O'Brien had an interesting season, in my opinion. His best was very good, and his worst was terrible.
Yeah, good summary.
Lots been said about him over the last season. Kieran Strawn, to me, has taken every chance that's been given to him, as an Inquisitor puts up on the chat. Hickey was pretty good last night, and had played an integral role in the game. We've seen how well Geelong used blitz halves in the ruck as well, and him being almost another midfielder the way with his mobility, but he's a fairly unique player. What are we doing there? Mac, with the ruck?
Well, I thought that Strawn played very well in the games that I saw in all the finals, except I thought he didn't not so well in the last one. Yeah, I thought that he probably did. That was probably his poorest game. The other two, he was quite dominant, I thought. But look, I think he's capable of playing A grade. But we've got this situation that we've got two blokes that probably are okay, but they aren't really what we want. I think we need much more mobile type rucks. The interesting thing, I mean, you take somebody like Hickey, for example. That was his fourth club he's played at. So he's always been the second or third fiddle at each club. But because people get injured, he always ends up playing. Yep. And he plays okay. So I don't know whether there's another one of him somewhere around like that. Because the guys that we've got, they aren't what you'd want as the perfect ruckman. Rob, but he busts his ass, but when he hits a ball, it could go bloody anywhere. And he does run, but he's not agile. He's not agile. Strawn is a little bit more supple, but not greatly so, and not quite as strong as Rob. But neither of them are what I would call the ideal ruckman. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt to see if like that Lloyd Beak from Fremantle, for example, apparently is trying to leave Freo and go to another club. So that type of player could be very handy.
Well, here's what I think, Mac. I think Riley Thilthorpe becomes our number one ruck and Kieran Strawn becomes a forward. Looking at Neil just getting 3 and going back up to 27 ahead of Cripps. The reason I say that is because Strawn played a season in the SANFL predominantly up forward and played very, very well. And I can see Riley and Kieran forming a much more versatile combination, ruck forward combination, than having Riley O'Brien in the mix. Riley O'Brien, unfortunately, if he's not marking around the ground, as much as he's got a tank, he's useless in the ruck and often costs us in terms of our around the ground play because he spoils opposition and does all sorts of silly things. I'd be interested in seeing how a Thilthorpe Strawn combination went.
Well, at least they're a bit more flexible because Rob's got the flexibility of an iron rod, unfortunately. He's got no flexibility at all. So I'd be quite happy to go along the path that you're talking about because both of those players are great competitors and they can actually take a mark. And Thilthorpe he's the greatest flexibility because he has the ability to pick out around his feet like a small guy can. So Thilthorpe probably, I think you're probably right. It's probably not a bad combination you're putting up. But what do you do with Rob?
O'Brien? Well, he's crikey, just got crammed my hamstring. He plays twos.
Would you trade him?
No. We need someone back there. GK can Strawn and kick for goal. Yes, he can. He played forward quite well a couple of seasons back in the twos.
He's quite a for goal.
I don't think you'd trade O'Brien because I don't know whether Strawn's got a full season in him, Mac. So I think there are going to be times when you're going to need to bring a decent second ruck in. I'm really in favour of bringing a young lad in if we can. Miller
look,
2
we have
votes,
to.
takes him to 27.
Well, that's fantastic. I wouldn't. I'd be very happy for Tuke Miller if he did win it. He, as I said, he was my dark horse, and that's not because of his colour. He was.
Okay.
No, I just want to make that clear. That I'm not making any funny jokes like that.
We know. Keep going.
No, because the guy never gets the proper recognition because he played for Gold Coast all the time, where Patrick Cripps played for bloody Carlton.
Give it up, for God's sake.
He gets 3 for giving the umpire a chewy.
Scoot's in the toilet, so let's update the Brownlow. We have Miller and Neil tied on 27 votes at the moment with 1 round to go. Cripps on 26 can still win it. Technically, Brayshaw on 25 can still win it too.
Right.
That's where we're at. Well, I don't know whether Miller polls in the last round. I can't remember.
I can't either, Fee. I can't. No. It's very hard to remember.
I can't remember.
I mean, Razor said Cripps over the line. Don't say that, mate.
What was it? Let me just have a look at the last round scores.
Yeah, you do that.
Right, round 23. Where are we? Come on, round 23. So the Lions got belted. So you don't think Neil might get 1. The Dockers beat the Giants. Maybe Brayshaw. The Suns belted North. North.
Yes, I read the game, and Miller was everywhere. It was like a rash.
And Carlton lost by a point to Collingwood. I reckon it's Miller's.
I'm calling it Miller.
I reckon it's Miller's. I hope it'll be well deserved, like you say.
I'm so pleased with him if he gets it. I really am. Because this guy, I heard him talking about it. He made his mind up. I can't remember. He said it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He wanted to take himself from being run-of-the-mill average player he watched the elite player and he wanted to be one of them. And he's done everything possible to do it. And if he does get it, even if he doesn't get it, I'll take my hat off to him. He's had an outstanding season.
Yeah.
There we go.
Why are you wearing
23?
Right. We might just... you said you took your hat off to him. I don't know why you're wearing a hat.
Well, see, it's actually since the radiotherapy and I've got no hair left, I have to wear something.
Mate, you didn't have much beforehand.
Mate, at least I had.
I'm going to allow people to watch this last round, so we'll have a little bit of... I've got it going on in the background here. So I'm just going to watch it real quick. Here's Brayshaw.
Yeah.
Sam 2 votes.
Uh-oh. Is it?
Oh, didn't get a vote, Brayshaw.
No vote.
Round, so he's out.
He's out. Northville versus Gold Coast. Go Miller.
Come on.
Go Miller. If he gets 3 here, he's home. Come on. Come on.
Oh, no.
God.
Oh, no.
Don't leave for that rotten Cripps to get
I'm calling it now. Patrick Cripps has won it.
Oh, no. Break his leg or something. Oh.
Here's Brisbane. He's looking new. I'd rather he won it.
And they're saying the bloody...
Lockie Neal got a vote. In a side that got beaten by 50 points, Lockie Neal got a vote.
Oh, dear. 26.
Wow.
But that rotten Cripps, he could still get there.
Here we go.
Here it goes. Uh-oh. Oh. Oh. Please don't. Is there a God?
Oh, surely Carlton don't get the 3.
Oh no. Oh
Oh,
no.
oh my goodness me.
The prick got it.
He got it.
Oh.
He got it.
Yeah. Well, I hope you umpires are bloody satisfied. You've ruined the whole Brownlow.
Oh dear.
Oh, that's shite. That is
Oh
shite.
dear.
Can't
Goodness
kick over
me.
bloody jam. Can't kick over jam bar. Handballs in mid-air all the time.
Look, in fairness, let's just read out Took Miller's disposals. 25 touches in the last quarter. 12 kicks, 13 handballs, 3 marks, 7 tackles, 400 metres gained. He got 2 inside 50s, 4 centre clearances, 7 score involvements. Disposal efficiency 76%, 13 contested possessions. Anderson and Swallow both got slightly more possessions than him. But wow. Who was that last round? Was it Ainsworth in the last round that got the... Who got it in the last round for the Suns? Oh no, it was Swallow. Swallow, Anderson and Sexton. How did Alex Sexton, 14 touches, 6 marks. He must have kicked a few goals, did he? Oh, he kicked 6 goals. Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Have a look at it. Crikey.
In the Collingwood game...
I'm a siege girl. This is disgraceful.
Let me just find the Collingwood game.
And really, what him? But the game that we beat them in, he got 3 votes in that game.
Yeah, no, that was the one.
They don't normally give it to the losing side, but that's what really did it.
Yeah. So Cripps was game high, 35 touches.
Yeah.
12 kicks, 23 handballs, 5 tackles, 12 clearances.
Well, he was the highest.
Eight inside 50s. No, I'm talking about the Carlton Collingwood game. I mean, he had a very good game. 27 contested possessions, Macca, in that game. You can't begrudge him 3 votes in that game when you look at it.
Well, technically you're right, but I begrudge him anything.
Let's have a look at the game. What was the game versus us? What round was that?
That's fairly early. No,
it was the second one. It was the one that
it was the second one. Oh, it's pretty late in the season. Round 22.
Round 22. Let's have a quick look.
No, sorry, 21. Seeds has corrected herself.
Come on, Seeds. No, it wasn't 21.
Yeah,
it was 20. Round 20. So here we go. Let's have a look at the player stats for round 20. So 41 touches he had.
Yeah, what about for us?
Highest was Brodie Smith with 37. We had Laird with 32.
Oh my Godfather.
Sam Walsh got 40 touches. What did he poll in that game? Let's go back. Oops. What have I done here? Let's go round by round.
Smith got 1 vote.
Round 20.
It was rigged.
No, it's not liking me.
Just while you're doing that, I've just got to yell out to Mrs. Macca.
What's going on?
It was rigged.
What have I done?
She's just nodded her head and agrees. It was rigged.
get back there, ladies and gentlemen. Round by round.
Oh, look, just to prove what a great sport I really am, congratulations to Patrick Cripps.
No, you don't mean that.
I didn't say I meant it. I was just saying.
20. Round 20, here we go. So Ben Keys got 2 votes in that game. Ben Keys, 21 touches, 14 and 7. So Brodie Smith didn't even get a vote in that game, did he? Oh, he got 1 vote. Keys got 2. 1. Cripps got 3.
Yeah.
And we beat them by 30 points.
I honestly thought that...
And Sam Walsh, who got 1 less kick, 3 more marks, half the clearances, same inside 50s, same clearances, slightly less. Nah.
I honestly thought that Smith would get the 3 for that game.
I mean, in a losing side, Cripps should have got 1 vote in that game.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Anyhow, look, I suppose we have to accept it, and it's happened, and he's won it, and forever he will be a Brownlow medalist. So,
and guess what, Macca?
Congratulations.
Guess what? You and I aren't Brownlow medalists, so I guess he's laughing all the way to the bank.
Well, he will be. If he wants to share his winnings, I'll be all for him.
Well, the thing that annoys me the most, Mac, is that being a bit of a G for Patrick Cripps throughout the last 3 seasons and thinking that he was on track for a good one at the start of the year, I didn't put any money on him for the Brownlow. That really annoys me. Well,
I have to thank Scoot, quite rightly, says I should get a Brownlow.
Mac deserves a Brownlow. Oh, come on, Scoot. You just pump up his tyres way too much.
A well-deserved Brownlow too. Thanks, Scoot.
Well, look, I reckon that's about us done. That was a bit exhausting towards the end there. Hang on a minute. Wait a minute. We've got some other stuff to do yet.
Have we?
Because more importantly, Mac, we've got the Crowcast MVP awards to dish out, because of course we voted. We voted during the course of the year on who we thought would be MVP for the Crows. And first of all, let's announce the listeners' MVP. And I can tell you that without any surprises whatsoever, Geordie Dawson won the Crowcast MVP quite comfortably in the end.
There. Yep.
Very comfortably in the end. We had he had 173 points. Second was Lairdy, had 111. Tex on 105. Ben Keys on 94, and Sam Berry on 82. Had a very good year. So thanks to everyone who voted in the listeners' MVP. What I'm actually going to try and do is get young Geordie on before.
That would be good.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Let's see what I can do.
Yep.
See if Reese has still got our back down there in Adelaide, Crowsland.
No, that really would be good. I reckon those 5 are spot on, actually.
Well, it's interesting because if you have a look at our MVP award, Mac. Oops, is that the right one? I'll change that. Okay. So the broadcast MVP, Mac. Geordie Dawson on first. We had a tie for second, Rory Laird and Ben Keys. We had Tex coming in fourth, and Sam Berry in fifth. So pretty much the same players. So no one can give us a hard time about not knowing what we're talking about because our listeners actually agreed with us. The only difference was the order. So excellent. Thanks to everyone who voted in on the listeners' MVP. We will try and get Geordie Dawson on the cast to accept what you could only describe as the coveted Crowcast MVP.
Well, it's a very, very, very valuable thing. Seaman, we didn't mention Seaman, and Scoots raised that. But have we had any?
Can we just finish? Hang on a minute. Don't just jump on Scoot because he's pumping up your tyres. Let's just stick to the format, okay?
I'll take it from wherever it comes, mate.
No, that's too easy. Sorry. Yeah, we will try and get Geordie on the cast. Obviously, our next cast will be during Trade Week, as we always do. We follow Trade Week in the lead up and also during the long drawn out 2-week Trade Week, fortnight, 10 days, whatever it is. So obviously we won't have any cast between now and then. We will also announce our chat MVP, our footy tips winner, etc. At that stage. Seeds, no, I haven't heard anything about Seeds at all. It's been very quiet.
It's been very quiet, and it might be well in his interest to retire.
Well, we'll see, won't we? It's 12 months out because of concussion is a big deal, and you only have to look at what's his name, Fennec in the NRL.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
Mario Fennec in the NRL. He's 60 years old, struggling with dementia, early onset dementia as a consequence of multiple concussions.
I read that.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible.
But he took like Paddy McCartan so many years before he could come back and play again.
Yeah, and look, shout out to Paddy McCartan too, making a grand final after all that heartache. Fantastic for him. But look, it's one of those things, isn't it? With Seeds, I just I don't like it. I don't. I would just prefer that he chucked it in. To be honest with you,
look, he's an outstanding player at his best, but you don't want to see somebody potentially risk their life in comfort by just playing footy. You just don't want to see that.
Yeah. Voting Magic, that's an excellent story. Sam Siggins won the Tassie Best and Fairest, which is great considering that he left in
ex-Crow.
In funny circumstances as well. So that's very good. All right, look, let's wrap it up, Macca. It's been fun. Thanks so much to everyone who's joined us during this fun little podcast that we've had, watching the Brownlow medal. We've had quite a good showing on YouTube, which has been great. The people on the cast on the chat have been very good. Razor, I haven't made mention of your Packers logo on your chat avatar there, but I'm going to delete it because we don't have anything Green Day in the Crowcast game. Just one other thing for those listening, Discord has just started up a forums feature, Macca. So we've got a couple of chats going on Trades and Draft and a couple of others as well. I'm going to set up the forums. I've set one up for the Trades and Draft. I'm not sure how it'll go, but let's test it out on the Trades and Draft and see whether it's not too clunky. If it's not too clunky, it'll be a way to keep the chat a little bit more organised on various topics. So have a crack at that. You can see that in the channel list on the left hand side there if you're having a look. We will be back, Macca, on when's trade thing is on about the 28th, I think.
Well, they have the grand final. Then the 28th is probably when they start the restricted the free agency thing, isn't it?
Yeah, they do the delistings, I think, the week before, don't they? Or halfway through
No.
something or other.
No, yeah. No, before the trade period starts, there's about 4 days where only the people like Carl Amon, etc., the ones that have gone to another club where that can happen in.
What?
Yeah, free agency period. There's a free agency period about 4 days.
Is he a free agent, Amon? Yeah, he is too, isn't
Yeah, pun?
he? Yeah, anyway, look, I don't care about that. I'm just saying that we'll be back around then. Let me have a look at the thing. Keep an eye on socials. We will we'll put up the dates about when we'll be previewing the trade. We'll probably come on the week before and just do a bit of a squad review like we've done in the past and preview the trade period. We'll work our way through that, and then obviously the draft a little way later will finish us off. Until then, thanks to everyone for joining us on YouTube. Thanks to everyone for joining us on Discord. Macca, take care of yourself.
I will, mate. No, I'm doing very well at the moment.
Good to hear, mate. Good to hear. And everyone take care of themselves. And we will see you in a few weeks for another podcast.
Good night, all.
Good night, all.